In July 1944, representatives from 44 nations gathered at a New Hampshire hotel to solve one problem: how to prevent another economic collapse like the one that preceded World War II. The accepted story goes like this. The Great Depression had shattered the gold standard. Nations hoarded gold, currencies crumbled, trade froze. World War II killed millions partly because economic desperation had made fascism attractive. So the Allies decided, never again, they'd build a new system. The United States, emerging from the war as the only industrial power with intact infrastructure, would anchor a global currency order. The dollar would be backed by gold. Other currencies would be pegged to the dollar. International institutions would police the system. It was genius. It worked. The world prospered. End of story. Except none of that was inevitable, and the real reasons it was built tell a much darker story about power, desperation, and a system designed to fail from the start. July 1-22, 1944. Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. The war in Europe wasn't over yet. The Pacific Campaign still raged. The delegates didn't come because they believed in free trade or democracy. They came because the old system had collapsed, and chaos was expensive. Before the Depression, the world ran on gold. Nations tied their currencies to gold at fixed rates. This seemed rational. Gold was scarce. It couldn't be printed. It enforced discipline. But it also meant you couldn't adjust your economy without gold. If you ran out, you suffered. And in the 1930s, everyone was running out. The gold standard didn't prevent depression. It deepened it. Nations that kept gold hoarded it. Nations that lost gold had to slash spending and wages. Unemployment spiraled. In Germany, hyperinflation and then deflation created a vacuum. Extremism filled it. The gold standard didn't cause World War II, but it created the conditions that made the war possible. So at Bretton Woods, delegates faced a choice. They could go back to gold, or they could try something new. They chose new, but new didn't mean what they said it meant. The conference had two main architects. John Maynard Keynes represented Britain. Harry Dexter White represented the United States. Keynes wanted a neutral international currency that no single nation could control. White wanted the dollar to replace gold. Keynes lost, not because his idea was worse, because America had won the war and Britain hadn't. The Bretton Woods System had three parts. First, the International Monetary Fund. It would lend to countries in crisis. Second, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, later called the World Bank. It would finance development. Third, fixed exchange rates, with the dollar pegged to gold at $35 per ounce and all other currencies pegged to the dollar. Here's where the story splits. The official version says this system created stability and prosperity. The Marshall Plan rebuilt Europe, trade exploded, living standards rose. The system worked for 25 years. But that version skips the mechanism. The dollar was pegged to gold, but the United States didn't have enough gold to back all the dollars it was printing. This wasn't a bug, it was the feature. America needed to export dollars to rebuild the world, but it could only do so if no one called the bluff. The math was simple. In 1945, the US held about 70% of the world's monetary gold, but American liabilities, money owed to other nations, were already larger than the gold on hand. For the system to work, other countries had to trust the dollar more than they trusted gold. For 20 years they did. The Cold War helped. Western Europe and Japan needed American protection from the Soviet Union. They were willing to hold dollars, not demand gold, because the alternative was Soviet domination. It was a deal. We'll buy your goods and let you run a trade surplus if you stay in our alliance. But by the 1960s, cracks appeared. Other nations were accumulating dollars. France under Charles de Gaulle started converting dollars to gold. If others followed, the system would collapse. The US couldn't pay gold on demand. It didn't have enough. American officials tried to manage the run. They created the London Gold Pool in 1961. Major nations agreed to stabilize the gold price. They tried to separate the official gold price from the market price, but the market doesn't listen to agreements. By 1968, the gold pool collapsed. The US stopped pretending it could redeem dollars for gold at the official price. It created a two-tier system: official gold for governments, market gold for everyone else. It was a confession. The emperor had no clothes. The system limped on for 3 more years. Then, in August 1971, President Nixon ended it entirely. He closed the gold window. The dollar would no longer be convertible to gold. Other nations couldn't exchange dollars for gold anymore. Bretton Woods was dead. The real Bretton Woods story isn't about a stable system that worked. It's about a system built on an unsustainable premise, that the world would accept American IOUs indefinitely. It worked as long as Cold War geopolitics required it. The moment that changed, it couldn't survive. What followed was a world of floating currencies, oil shocks, and volatility. Whether that's better or worse than Bretton Woods depends on your perspective, but it's important to understand The post-war order wasn't built on economic logic. It was built on American power and the temporary alignment of Western interests. When those shifted, the system shifted with them. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. If you want to understand how money systems shape history, subscribe. We explore the origins and collapses of financial orders every week. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.